Okay, let's unpack this, because what our sources reveal about the digital age is truly astonishing and, frankly, quite unsettling. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something profoundly personal, yet, universally relevant. How the digital world is fundamentally reshaping what it means to be human in ways many of us haven't even begun to fully grasp.
Indeed. And this isn't just about, the latest app update or the newest gadget on the market. This deep dive is really an urgent look at the profound, often imperceptible shifts occurring in our very cognition, our collective well-being, the intricate fabric of our social structures, and maybe even the fundamental nature of reality itself. All of these transformations are being driven by the relentless, ever-accelerating pace of the modern digital landscape.
And we're not just throwing theories at you, right? Our exploration today draws from a stack of incredible sources. We've got a comprehensive study guide on the human experience, a chilling timeline of harms detailing the evolution of digital threats, and several critical analyses offering really profound insights into our digital age. It's a dense, multifaceted body of material for sure, but our mission is crystal clear. We're here to extract the most critical, often hidden insights from these sources. We want to help you understand the unseen harms, the subtle psychological erosions, and even the fundamental transformation of language that's happening all around us. Ultimately, this deep dive is about equipping you with essential, actionable strategies for navigating this increasingly complex digital frontier.
Think of it as your personal shortcut, maybe, to being truly well-informed, to moving beyond just the sensational headlines and into a deeper understanding of the underlying mechanisms. We're sifting through the dense data, the intricate research, and the profound philosophical implications to try and give you a clearer, more nuanced picture of the digital challenges and opportunities we all face right now and in the very near future.
So let's start with something incredibly sensitive, but absolutely crucial, this amplified concept of stolen childhoods. Our sources paint a very stark, almost heartbreaking picture, describing it as a pervasive and insidious stream of harm that has just, exploded over the past couple of decades. It's truly like a silent epidemic.
Yeah, and what's crucial to understand here is the dramatic intensification of this concept over a relatively short period, too. If we look back to the early days of social media, platforms like MySpace or the very early stages of Facebook, they certainly presented risks. Cyberbullying, for instance, was very real, and we saw concerning communities emerge, such as those pro-ANA websites that actively promoted dangerous anorexic behaviors, normalizing and even encouraging self-harm. Those were significant concerns at the time.
Oh, I remember those, and they were terrifying enough back then. But what our sources are saying now is that the landscape has shifted in its course dramatically, becoming so much worse and more predatory. How exactly are these modern platforms like TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube fundamentally different and, more dangerous than those early versions?
Well, the difference really lies in their sophisticated design and their pervasive integration into children's lives. While early platforms were often, let's say, clunky and less ubiquitous, modern ones are engineered with advanced algorithms, endless feeds, hyper-personalized content streams. They constantly learn and adapt to keep users hooked. The sheer scale of immersion is just unprecedented. Children are now spending an estimated 135 minutes a day online. That's over 2 hours every single day. They're immersed in environments explicitly designed to be addictive, packed with what our sources call dark patterns and these dopamine-driven feedback loops. These aren't just occasional visits. It's often a constant, maybe even passive presence. This relentless exposure transforms what used to be, occasional stranger danger encounters into a continuous algorithmic exposure to threats. It makes parental monitoring exponentially harder. Imagine trying to guard against a threat that morphs, adapts, and is personalized for your child every minute of every day.
I can only imagine. It's like the digital world has these tentacles reaching into every aspect of a child's life, and those tentacles are constantly evolving. And the spectrum of harm itself has just broadened exponentially, hasn't it? It's not just cyberbullying anymore. It seems like a whole new frontier of danger.
Exactly. The sources detail a frighteningly wide and deep range of dangers. We're talking about everything from increasingly sophisticated cyberbullying tactics and relentless online harassment to self-harm encouragement that spreads like wildfire through peer groups, to organized grooming operations, radicalization into extremist views, unwanted sexual attention that can escalate rapidly, and widespread, often unsolicited exposure to pornography. The sheer volume, the variety, and the insidious nature of these threats are just overwhelming for young, developing minds that lack the cognitive and emotional maturity to fully process or defend against them.
Okay, so if that wasn't unsettling enough, here's where it gets really interesting and deeply concerning. the crisis of AI-generated content. We're talking about a fundamental erosion of truth, a seismic shift in how we perceive reality.
This raises an incredibly important question for all of us, doesn't it? What happens when you can no longer trust what you see or hear online? When the very fabric of digital reality becomes, well, indistinguishable from fiction? Our sources present a chilling reality, starting with the deeply disturbing rise of AI-generated child sexual abuse imagery, or CSAM. There has been a staggering 400% increase in confirmed reports of this material.
400% increase.
Right.
That's an impossible number to fully grasp, almost beyond comprehension at scale. It implies a technological capability that is both terrifying and just rapidly advancing.
It is, and the implications are profound. The sources go further, stating the terrifying inevitability of full, feature-length AI films of child sexual abuse that are rapidly becoming indistinguishable from genuine films. And even more alarmingly, they can depict real, recognizable children. This isn't merely a hypothetical future threat. It's a present and escalating danger that challenges our ability to even identify abuse. What's really critical to understand here is that this content doesn't just cause direct, unspeakable harm to its victims and those who witness it. It actively generates demand for child sexual abuse images and normalizes sexual violence towards children. It creates this dangerous and self-reinforcing negative feedback loop that feeds right into real-world exploitation.
That's horrifying, truly. And beyond the unimaginable horror of AI-generated CSAM, deepfakes are everywhere now, aren't they? For all sorts of nefarious purposes, blurring the lines of reality in countless ways.
Absolutely. Deepfakes are being weaponized for everything from cyberbullying and blackmail to widespread harassment, causing deep emotional distress, severe anxiety, and a profound sense of violation for their targets. And it's not just manipulated images or videos. AI tools are making sophisticated scams and disinformation campaigns appear substantial and therefore believable in ways previously impossible. We're seeing everything from hyper-realistic fake job postings created by tools like ChatGPT to fabricated images and voice clones used in elaborate romance schemes. Vulnerable populations, particularly the elderly, youth, and those with intellectual disabilities, are disproportionately targeted because they may be less digitally savvy or perhaps more trusting. The FBI, for example, reported a staggering 14% increase in scams targeting the elderly in 2023 alone, resulting in losses totaling $3.4 billion.
$3.4 billion. Wow. That's not just a cold statistic. That's real lives, real savings, real futures just destroyed. So what does this all mean for our fundamental understanding of reality? Because it sounds like we're heading into something called an epistemological crisis, which feels like a very academic term for something profoundly disruptive.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the epistemological crisis is precisely that core concept. It's the profound breakdown in our ability to determine what is true and what is false. When AI-generated content becomes indistinguishable from reality, it fundamentally erodes our collective and individual ability to discern truth from falsehood online. Imagine trying to navigate a world where your eyes and ears can be so easily deceived. When you can't trust your senses or the authenticity of digital information, the very foundation of shared reality and knowledge is undermined. This has chilling implications. It impacts public discourse, making meaningful conversations almost impossible. It threatens democratic processes by making it easy to spread convincing lies. And it fundamentally erodes our collective ability to engage in critical thinking. The truly unsustainable burden of truth verification shifts entirely and disproportionately to the individual, which is an overwhelming and ultimately impossible task in a digitally saturated world where information is constantly generated and manipulated.
And speaking of this pervasive digital presence and data, let's talk about digital surveillance and identity under threat. Our sources mention something that sounds truly futuristic, but is rapidly becoming real. Human digital twins, or HDTs. It sounds like something straight out of a, dystopian sci-fi movie.
It does, but it's very real and in some forms already in development. HDTs are essentially temporal digital replicas of an individual, incredibly detailed virtual copies that encompass every observable physiological, physical, mental, and social attribute. While they hold immense potential for personalized healthcare, predictive diagnostics, or even highly customized educational experiences, their predictive capabilities are what raise the deepest concerns. They enable a profound shift from merely reactive monitoring, observing what has already happened, to proactive intervention or even manipulation. Imagine a system that can predict your next decision or your mood with high accuracy, and then deliver targeted information or influences based on that prediction before you even consciously make a choice or feel an emotion.
So my digital self could essentially predict or maybe even dictate my physical self's actions or even my feelings. That fundamentally challenges the very idea of free will and individual autonomy, doesn't it? It sounds like losing control of your own life.
Precisely. Our sources use a powerful, almost chilling analogy. Imagine a dashboard for reality where one's entire life can be viewed, manipulated, experienced, and interacted with, like a child with a dollhouse. The profound fear, supported by critical analysis in our sources, is that HDTs could become sophisticated tools for mass surveillance, enabling governments or corporations to track individuals' movements, enforce social control, and restrict personal freedoms on an unprecedented scale. This is a profound shift in power dynamics, where your future self might be decided by an algorithm.
And it links to this idea of digital amnesia for internal states, which suggests we're becoming less connected to our own bodies and intuition, increasingly reliant on external data to tell us who we are.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how this constant externalization and analysis of internal states, like your heart rate, sleep patterns, even subtle physiological responses by a digital replica, can lead to individuals becoming profoundly less attuned to their own intrinsic bodily signals and intuition. You might stop asking yourself how you feel and instead look at an app to tell you right. This external reliance can foster a kind of digital amnesia for internal experiences, making individuals more dependent on their digital twins' data and predictions for self-understanding and decision-making. This fundamentally alters our relationship with our own identity, our physical being, and our innate wisdom. It's a subtle but significant erosion of self-awareness.
It sounds exhausting, frankly. All this data collection, constant monitoring, and the pressure to understand these complex digital agreements. And it must lead to something called consent fatigue, right? Where you just sort of stop caring.
Absolutely. Ubiquitous data collection, driven relentlessly by the proliferation of Internet of Things, IoT devices in our homes, cars, even our bodies, coupled with advanced AI, is escalating privacy fears globally. A significant majority of global consumers, 68%, are deeply concerned about online privacy, and 57% view AI as a major threat to their personal data. Consumers consistently report immense difficulty understanding precisely what data is collected about them and how it's actually used. This overwhelming complexity leads directly to consent fatigue, where individuals are so bombarded by endless, complex user agreements and privacy policies that they simply click accept without reading. This creates an apathy trap, effectively providing corporations with a tacit green light to expand increasingly intrusive data harvesting, turning our personal lives into data mines.
And if that wasn't enough, we're talking about biodigital convergence. This is where the lines of humanity itself start to blur, where our very biology intersects with technology. This is truly mind-bending stuff.
Biodigital convergence represents the merging of biology and digital technology, encompassing fields like synthetic biology, biotechnology, and advanced digital tech with astonishing applications. We're talking about advanced wearables that track every metric, ingestible sensors that monitor internal processes, and the truly groundbreaking potential of brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. The ultimate goal, as outlined in our sources, is comprehensive human augmentation, effectively upgrading human capabilities.
Swallowing a spy is the phrase that immediately comes to mind for those ingestible sensors. The ethical concerns must be absolutely immense, as you mentioned.
They are paramount, and the sources highlight them as critical. At the top of the list are fundamental issues of privacy, ensuring genuine informed consent, and protecting individual autonomy. For example, ingestible sensors, while potentially beneficial for health monitoring, raise profound worries about unpleasant forms of surveillance and the frightening potential for coercion if they were to be mandated by insurers to reduce premiums, or maybe by employers as a condition of employment. BCIs, in particular, provoke the most profound philosophical questions regarding the nature of conscious selfhood and about who and what we are and ought to be. If a device can read your thoughts or even influence them, where does your independent self begin and end? This really gets to the core of what it means to be human in the most fundamental sense.
So it's not just about data collection from our online interactions. It's about something called energy harvesting, directly from our biology, our very being. That feels like a whole new level of commodification.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating and maybe disturbing here is the concept of energy harvesting in this broad context. This isn't just about collecting data points like a website click. This is the sophisticated extraction of value, raw data, precious attention, and immediate emotional response directly from human biological and cognitive processes. Imagine your heart rate during a stressful email becoming a data point that signals your susceptibility to anxiety ads, or your engagement with a news story being harvested to pinpoint your emotional triggers. It transforms our most internal states and physiological functions, our very feelings, our quiet reflections, our attention spans into marketable assets for corporations. It's not just about tracking what you do, but commodifying who you are on a biological and emotional level, turning your inner world into a profit center for others.
And then there's this idea of therapeutic creep, where technologies initially developed for medical reasons subtly expand into enhancements for everyone. It sounds like a bit of a slippery slope.
Yes, therapeutic creep is a critical ethical concern that demands vigilance. Technologies initially developed for crucial therapeutic purposes, like pacemakers that save lives, or prosthetic limbs that restore function, gradually expand into enhancement of human capabilities beyond strict medical necessity. For instance, a BCI developed to help a paralyzed person move a cursor could potentially be adapted to enhance memory or cognitive speed for a healthy individual. This gradual expansion subtly desensitizes society to the idea of fundamentally altering human nature. Our sources warn that this could lead to a frightening two-class society based on access to these enhancement technologies, exacerbating existing inequalities and creating entirely new, potentially immutable forms of social stratification where human capabilities are literally bought and sold.
Let's shift gears slightly now to the inner landscape, because it's clear the digital age is taking a massive, often invisible toll on our mental health. It's described in our sources as the silent erosion, and the data is pretty stark, isn't it?
The data is indeed striking, yeah. And it paints a very clear picture. Since the early 2000s, coinciding directly with the widespread adoption of the internet and social media, there's been a significant, undeniable surge in anxiety, depression, and eating disorders among young people globally. To put it in perspective, in Australia, for example, a concerning 38.8% of 16-24-year-olds experienced a mental disorder in a 12-month period. And even more alarmingly, in 2021, a staggering 76.5% of 15-19-year-olds reported poor mental health.
That's almost 3/4 of young people reporting poor mental health. That's not just a trend. That's a crisis on a societal scale, affecting an entire generation. Are these numbers directly linked to social media use, or is it a broader set of factors at play?
Well, it's complex, obviously, but the correlation is undeniably strong and widely supported by research. Our sources emphasize that prolonged, heavy social media use is directly linked to profound difficulties in sustaining focus, chronic emotional fatigue, and the development of compulsive behaviors that increasingly resemble clinical addiction. The impact is severe and tragic. Child suicide rates have increased by up to 150% since the early 2000s, and self-harm among girls aged 10-14 has nearly tripled in the same period. This consistently and strongly points to social media as a major contributing factor. Critically for adolescents, simply spending more than 3 hours a day on social media significantly increases their risk for mental health problems, including suicidal ideation and depression.
And this brings us to what's called a dopamine-driven attention deficit. It's not just about being distracted occasionally, it's about how our brains are being fundamentally reshaped, almost like rewired by these platforms.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is precisely how platforms are engineered to manipulate our neurochemistry. They are meticulously designed to trigger and exploit these dopamine-driven feedback loops. Every notification, every new piece of content on an endless feed provides a small, unpredictable hit of dopamine. It effectively trains the brain to constantly seek constant novelty and instant rewards, mimicking the addictive pathways seen with substances. Estimates suggest that a significant number, perhaps 5–10% of Americans, already meet the clinical criteria for social media addiction. The severe consequence of this constant neurological prompting is shrinking attention spans and profound difficulty with deep, sustained focus. This isn't just an individual struggle, it's a generation-wide cognitive shift, impacting everything from academic performance, where deep reading and complex problem-solving are paramount, to future workforce readiness, where sustained concentration and critical analysis are essential skills. The very capacity for sustained, deep thought is being eroded, replaced by a preference for rapid, superficial consumption.
So it's not affecting everyone equally, though, is it? It seems to amplify existing vulnerabilities, almost creating a kind of digital divide in mental resilience.
That's an incredibly important point and a critical nuance. While digital technologies can, in some cases, provide positive outcomes like increased social support for certain groups, our sources highlight how they also amplify existing inequalities. Vulnerable populations are disproportionately impacted. For instance, LGBTQI plus youth, racial and ethnic minorities, and youth with disabilities are demonstrably more likely to experience cyberbullying and targeted harassment online. Additionally, girls across various demographics consistently report disproportionately negative impacts on well-being from social media use compared to boys. This indicates that pre-existing social, psychological, or identity-based vulnerabilities are often exacerbated, not alleviated, in the digital landscape, widening the gap in mental well-being across different segments of society.
And then there's the relentless pressure of social comparison, the performance culture online. It feels like everyone is always putting their best, most curated self forward, creating an impossible standard to live up to.
That's precisely it, and it's a profound source of distress, particularly for adolescents who are still forming their identities. Constant exposure to highly curated lives and unrealistic beauty standards on social media fuels intense, unfavorable social comparison. Users scroll through seemingly perfect feeds, comparing their often messy, ordinary lives to idealized, unattainable digital personas. This directly leads to increased anxiety, chronic depression, feelings of loneliness, and pervasive negative self-rumination. This environment fosters a pervasive performance culture online, where the implicit pressure to present an idealized, aspirational version of oneself supplants genuine connection and authentic self-expression. This, in turn, creates an authenticity deficit, where self-worth becomes tragically tied to external validation likes, comments, follower counts, rather than intrinsic value or genuine self-acceptance.
And the escalation of online coercion, with this chilling new concept of the familiar predator, must make things incredibly complex and terrifying for parents trying to keep their children safe. It's not just unknown strangers anymore, is it?
What's truly critical here is the dramatic and deeply disturbing increase in online enticement and grooming cases. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCME, reported a staggering 300% increase in cases from 2021 to 2023. With over 186,800 cases identified in 2023 alone, this is a massive, accelerating problem. The traditional stranger danger paradigm, while still relevant, has fundamentally evolved and been complicated. Our sources state that a chilling 62% of perpetrators are acquaintances from offline life people the child already knows and trusts. Even more unsettling, nearly a third of these perpetrators are minors themselves, often slightly older peers. This familiar predator phenomenon, with its blurred social boundaries and pre-existing trust, makes detection and prevention far more complex. Trust established offline can be insidiously exploited digitally, making it incredibly harder for children to identify grooming tactics and for parents to intervene effectively before significant harm occurs.
So the threat is often coming from within a child's own social circle. That's far more insidious. And all of this leads to a constant distraction from pure intent, as our sources put it, a constant pulling away from our internal compass, our focus.
Yes, the hyperstimulation from constant notifications, the endless feeds, and the omnipresent allure of digital stimulation creates an environment of rapid task switching and a profound lack of presence in the offline world. Our minds are constantly fragmented. Platforms deliberately exploit notification mechanisms, messages, posts, the powerful fear of missing out, FOMO, and the addictive cycle of likes and rewards. This creates an unceasing external pull on attention that dramatically diminishes self-directed attention and internal motivation. It weakens our self-regulation, making it harder to focus on what truly matters to us, our genuine, pure intent, because the digital world is always clamoring for our attention, pulling us away from our own thoughts and priorities.
And then there's the profound impact on youth culture itself, the sort of darker echoes of digital play, where platforms supposedly meant for kids can expose them to shocking and deeply disturbing content.
Roblox is presented as a prime and deeply concerning example here. Despite being primarily designed for children and marketed as a safe, creative space, it exposes them to serious dangers like rampant grooming, sexual exploitation, and even sexual assault due to fundamentally inadequate moderation. Our sources specifically mention the presence of explicit violence, gore, and graphic pornography within user-made games and experiences on the platform. But what's truly crucial here and goes beyond direct exposure is the concept of vicarious desensitization.
What exactly does that mean? Vicarious desensitization. It sounds like harm spreading even without direct interaction.
Precisely. It means that even if children don't directly participate in these problematic games or encounter the explicit content firsthand, the communication about these experiences within schools and peer groups, through conversations, shared stories, or even just awareness of what's out there leads to a widespread desensitization. This indirect exposure normalizes harmful themes, problematic social interactions, and even violent or sexual content within social circles and entire communities. It creates a kind of contagion effect where digital harms rub off within entire communities, becoming a pervasive cultural issue that reshapes the collective understanding of what's normal, acceptable, or even desirable, eroding the protective boundaries of childhood.
Okay, moving on to something a little more abstract perhaps, but equally impactful. How the digital landscape is fundamentally transforming language itself. Our sources suggest it's leading to a bifurcation of linguistic competence. That sounds like a sophisticated way of saying we're becoming two different kinds of communicators, maybe?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the duality, the simultaneous gain and loss. Digital communication, with its reliance on short-form content, abbreviations, emojis, memes, it undoubtedly enhances efficiency, immediacy, and emotional expression. It allows for quick, often visceral communication and fosters a certain kind of linguistic creativity through novel expressions. We can convey a lot with a few characters or an image. However, this comes with significant concerns about the erosion of formality in communication, a demonstrable decline in formal writing abilities, and the undermining of the nuance, precision, and contextual depth of traditional language.
So on one hand, we're becoming super efficient digital communicators, masters of the quick reaction and the pithy phrase. But on the other, we might be losing something important in terms of deeper expression or complex thought.
Precisely. The bifurcation of linguistic competence means that individuals may become highly proficient in informal, often emotionally driven, digital communication modes, while concurrently losing proficiency in nuanced, precise, and complex formal discourse. Imagine trying to articulate a complex policy argument or a subtle philosophical concept using only emojis and abbreviations. It's difficult, right? This creates a growing, tangible gap in communication abilities that can significantly impact professional interactions, academic pursuits, and even the quality of public discourse. We risk losing the shared vocabulary needed for deep, reasoned discussion.
And this linguistic shift can even affect our critical thinking by eroding etymology and the root meaning of words, right? This seems to suggest that if words lose their historical weight, their depth, we might lose our ability to think deeply about things.
This raises an incredibly important question about the very foundations of thought. Our sources suggest that this linguistic shift risks severing our connection to etymology and the root meaning of words. End quote. When words are reduced to their most immediate superficial meaning, stripped of their historical context and deeper connotations, their power to evoke complex ideas, moral frameworks, or abstract principles diminishes significantly. For example, if truth just means what I feel is right now, rather than an objective standard, then public discourse becomes chaotic. This erosion directly impacts critical thought, making populations demonstrably more susceptible to manipulation when concepts are simplified, distorted, or weaponized through emotionally charged but shallow language. Furthermore, algorithms, by prioritizing content that confirms existing biases and promotes polarization, actively hinder critical thinking, promoting a more fragmented, emotional, and less reasoned view of the world.
It's almost like the words themselves are losing their depth, their very soul, in a way. And then there's the subconscious influence of what our sources call symbolic encoding, and the idea of psychological frequency. This feels like invisible strings pulling at us somehow.
Indeed. Digital environments are not neutral spaces. They are saturated with carefully crafted symbols, visual encodings, and auditory patterns that exert a powerful, often subconscious influence. While not literal scientific frequencies, these subtle encodings can profoundly affect an individual's psychological or emotional frequency, their mood, their cognitive state, even their core beliefs. This operates as a pervasive form of subtle psychological conditioning, shaping us without our conscious awareness. Think about the specific color palettes, fonts, sound effects, and imagery used in certain apps or games. They're not accidental. They're designed to elicit specific emotional responses and keep you engaged.
And this is where dark patterns come in, isn't it? Those sneaky design elements that manipulate us into doing things we might not otherwise do. We've all encountered them, I'm sure.
Yes. Dark patterns are a prime and insidious example of this symbolic influence in action. These are explicitly defined as deceptive user interface, UI design elements crafted to manipulate users into performing actions they would not normally take, often at the user's expense.
Hmm.
Our sources provide concrete, highly relatable examples. Consider roach motels, where signing up for a service is deceptively easy, but canceling is an absolute nightmare, buried under layers of hidden menus and "are you sure?" prompts. Or bait and switch, where you're promised one outcome only to find a different, less desirable one once you're committed. Then there are disguised ads that look indistinguishable from regular content, leading you to click on something you didn't intend. And forced continuity, where subscriptions auto-renew without clear or easily accessible notice, leveraging your inertia. These patterns aren't just annoying, they leverage powerful psychological tactics like loss aversion, making you fear losing something you already have, or scarcity, pressuring you to act immediately, basically manipulating your decision-making processes.
It's truly manipulative, isn't it? Designed to exploit our natural tendencies. And then there are even more subtle subliminal messages, too, operating below the surface.
Absolutely. Beyond the explicit dark patterns, psychological hooks like the infinite scrolling features in social media feeds are not just about convenience. They're meticulously designed to increase user engagement, often at the direct expense of user well-being, driving addiction, and chillingly, even the dark nature present in some user-generated games for children on platforms like Roblox with their graphic violence or inappropriate themes contributes to this subtle influence. These elements aren't merely aesthetic choices or accidental inclusions. They're carefully engineered to shape perception and behavior, operating below the threshold of conscious detection to influence emotional resonance, cognitive states, and ultimately our responses. It's constant low-level conditioning.
So given all these profound and often unsettling challenges we've discussed, what's the path forward? Our sources focus strongly on cultivating discernment and critical thinking as essential survival skills for navigating this digital age. How do we actually do that?
This raises an absolutely vital question, doesn't it? How do we empower individuals to thrive, not just survive, in this incredibly complex landscape? The first step is acknowledging that robust media literacy skills, sharp critical thinking, and the unwavering ability to question digital narratives are no longer optional extras. They are essential survival skills for everyone. Our education systems, alongside families and communities, must collaborate to proactively equip individuals, starting from a young age, with practical tools to identify misinformation, disinformation, and manipulated content. This means stressing healthy skepticism, not cynicism, actively seeking and utilizing diverse sources to get a full picture, diligently avoiding confirmation bias, which is our tendency to only seek out information that confirms what we already believe, and routinely practicing fact-checking. It's about building a robust mental defense system against a deluge of information designed to mislead you.
Right. And beyond just mental acuity, there's a strong emphasis on cultivating digital and physical awareness, including taking deliberate detoxes from technology. It sounds like a critical step in reconnecting with ourselves and the real world around us.
Well, what's truly fascinating here, and often overlooked in the rush of digital life, is the profound importance of setting conscious, non-negotiable boundaries with technology. This involves actionable strategies like establishing specific screen-free times, for example, during meals, family time, or for at least an hour before bed. It means creating dedicated screen-free zones within the home, maybe turning bedrooms into digital sanctuaries. Practical tools like app blockers or screen time tracking can be invaluable in managing usage. Engaging in complete digital detox periods, even for just a weekend, is highly beneficial. It allows your brain to truly reset. Our sources also recommend practical advice like the 20-20-20 rule for eye strain every 20 minutes, look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds, and they emphasize the significant benefits of these practices for improving sleep quality, reducing mental fatigue, and even boosting creativity. These deliberate practices allow for crucial introspection, deep recharging, and a vital realignment with one's authentic, pure intent and intrinsic being energy, reclaiming self-directed attention from the relentless external digital pull.
And finally, it all seems to come down to collective resilience. This isn't something any one of us can tackle alone, is it? It feels much more like a societal responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, navigating these profound issues is absolutely a collective endeavor. It requires immense empathy and patience from all individuals, families, and communities. We need to actively foster environments that mitigate impulsive reactions to every digital stimulus or societal shift, moving towards more thoughtful engagement. Practicing mindfulness, which cultivates presence and awareness, and actively cultivating mental strength are key to building this resilience. Building true resilience in the digital age involves not just setting personal digital boundaries, but also cultivating meaningful relationships, both online, where they can be healthy and supportive, and crucially, offline in our physical communities. It means practicing consistent self care that acknowledges the mental and emotional toll of the digital world. It's crucial to recognize that this massive societal transition, this fundamental reshaping of human experience, will take time for individuals, families, and societies to adapt and build robust defenses and new norms. Our collective ability to approach these issues with deep understanding, genuine compassion, and an unwavering commitment to shared well being will ultimately determine the future of the human experience in the digital age. This necessitates a profound societal shift towards prioritizing human flourishing over mere technological expediency or profit. Hashtag tag tag outro.
Wow, what an incredible, profound, deep dive today. We've explored truly immense challenges, haven't we? From the amplified stolen childhoods and the chilling epistemological crisis of AI-generated content, to the predictive control of human digital twins, the silent, pervasive erosion of our mental well-being, and even the fundamental transformation of language itself. It's abundantly clear that the digital landscape is far more complex and overwhelming than most of us realize, silently reshaping us in ways we're only just beginning to comprehend.
Indeed. Understanding these intricate mechanisms, recognizing precisely how our cognition, our well-being, and our very sense of reality are being reshaped is the vital first step towards regaining agency and conscious control over our lives in this evolving landscape. It's about moving beyond simply reacting to the surface and truly being informed about the deep currents at play.
So, as we stand at this fascinating, pivotal crossroads, where humanity and technology are just inextricably linked, what kind of human experience are we collectively creating? And perhaps even more importantly, what specific steps will you take, starting today, to ensure that this evolving digital age truly serves humanity's deepest well-being, its innate sense of purpose, and its flourishing, rather than merely its convenience or someone else's profit?
This deep dive really highlights that critical thinking, conscious engagement, and an unwavering commitment to our shared humanity are more important now than ever before. The future of the human experience in the digital age truly depends on our collective, informed choices.
Powerful thoughts to leave with, for sure. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be here next time, ready to unpack another stack of sources and discover what's truly important beneath the surface.